Welcome. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to our presentation of Mesa Stormwater Management Plan. I'm Stacy Bass. I'm the marketing specialist for Environmental and Sustainability Department. With me today presenting is Amy Town, our environmental program specialist, also with the Environmental and Sustainability Department. Amy, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stacy. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Good.
All right, wonderful. Hello and welcome to the 2026 Stormwater Management Plan Workshop. My name's Amy Town. I'm an environmental program specialist with the City of Mesa, and today we're going to be talking about stormwater, what it is, why it's important to protect it, and how we protect it at the City of Mesa. Then at the end, we'll have some time for questions. Before we get into the city's plan, it's helpful to understand some background of what stormwater is. Stormwater is simply rainwater that travels across the land in our communities and into the storm drain system. It's important to understand that stormwater gets no treatment, unlike the sanitary sewer system. This is because our storm sewer system is separate of the sanitary sewer system. So any pollutants picked up by stormwater will be carried back into the environment. The stormwater sewer system consists of surface channels, curbs and gutters, and stormwater pipes and culverts. Our system is called the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, also known as the MS4. The stormwater here in Mesa can flow to a variety of locations, most notably the Salt and Gila rivers, which are protected waters of the United States, which puts a bit more emphasis and regulation behind protecting our stormwater. Numerous endangered and rare species live along these rivers. For example, the Ridgway's rail bird, lowland leopard frog, and the Sonoran desert toad. And there are also agricultural communities downstream that we need to protect. There's retention and detention basins, very common in residential neighborhoods and parks, and those are designed to allow stormwater to percolate into the ground, which again creates an avenue where stormwater pollutants can eventually reach the groundwater. There are also floodways and ADOT channels throughout the city where stormwater can flow. So that's why we want to protect the stormwater, but what are we protecting it from? Let's get into the pollutants we commonly see. Here's a pretty exhaustive list of pollutants that you may interact with or see in your neighborhoods or just out in public on a daily basis, all of which we want to keep out of the stormwater. The automotive and machinery industry has a long history of misusing dry wells as oil disposal drains, particularly in the Central Valley, Phoenix area. Coolants and refrigerants have been found in Mesa neighborhoods, which can easily kill pets and wildlife once discharged. Brake dust and shavings are commonly referenced as the top contributor to lead and copper being found in stormwater. Trash, litter, dirt, and sediment can cause storm sewer blockages, which in another municipality local to Arizona caused a $1 million cleanup, and that's not something we want to do, so it's important to keep trash, litter, dirt, and sediment out of the system. Pesticides and herbicides are intentional poisons and will kill any aquatic life in the stormwater. Chlorine is a very common pollutant from discharging unneutralized pool water into the streets rather than into your sanitary sewer cleanouts. Fertilizers are typically loaded with nitrogen, which leads to algal blooms and standing bodies of water, and these effectively suffocate the aquatic populations. Paints and solvents will not dilute easily into the stormwater, and those can be difficult to remediate. Moving on to bacteria and viruses, animal excrement, particularly from birds, is a top contributor of E. coli and other pathogens into the storm sewer. Septic systems that are failing or not properly installed can cause discharges of pathogens onto the surface and into the stormwater, particularly those associated with food poisoning. Those pollutants coming from industrial and commercial facilities, those include heavy metals and solvents, which, like I mentioned, are difficult to remediate. Hydrocarbons are commonly found from fuel sources, which are also difficult to extract and do not easily dilute in the stormwater. PFAS and other forever chemicals are actively seeing more regulations regarding their use, disposal, and monitoring requirements, and we'll learn more about these in the coming years as we study them. Here's a list of where our stormwater pollutants generally come from. We've broken it down into 3 categories: industrial, commercial, and residential. And then there's a general category that everything else kind of falls into. At home in your neighborhood, you might see things like pet waste, yard clippings and chemicals, litter, washout, dumping, and gray water. So you can take a moment and kind of read through all of these pollutant sources. Next, we're going to get into stormwater regulation and who's watching us like Pennywise here. Throughout the 50s and 60s, it became apparent that many lakes and rivers were heavily polluted. Fish, birds, wildlife were dying. Lakes and rivers were seen turning bright, unnatural colors, and a few rivers even caught on fire. Most notably the Cuyahoga River in 1969 in the Cleveland area. The Clean Water Act was the first major federal protection and enacted in 1972. This act mostly regulated industrial discharge pipes that were directly discharging waste and wastewater into rivers, lakes, or surface dumping. While this was a great first step, many revisions and amendments were made, and the amendments made in 1987 introduced regulating stormwater on construction sites, certain industrial sites, and for municipalities. Since it's impossible to completely prevent 100% of pollutants from entering stormwater, permits were developed to allow the highest risk areas to discharge so long as they do extra work to minimize the pollutants. This is how we came about having an MS4 permit at the city and maintaining our storm sewer system. There are shorter term permits as well, like the construction general permit for active construction sites greater than an acre in size. There are operating permits like the multi-sector general permit for certain industries requiring additional monitoring and reporting. For example, Falcon Field Airport, which deals with multiple sectors of commerce. Large cities, which include Mesa, have a very robust program that require many different preventative actions. MS4 permits are split into 2 categories seen here. Phase 1 cities, which Mesa is an example of, have a population of greater than 100,000. The permits for Phase 1 cities are custom tailored to that city's needs and features, whereas Phase 2 cities with populations of less than 100,000 have a cookie cutter permit that they have to adhere to, and they don't have the opportunity to custom tailor it like Mesa does. The MS4 permit requires the city to implement many preventative measures, including setting city ordinances, developing system cleaning and maintenance procedures, facility good housekeeping and city employee training, household hazardous waste collection, public education and outreach, industrial and construction inspection programs, illicit discharge investigations, and stormwater monitoring. And most notably, the development of a stormwater management plan, better known as the SWAMP. Our SWAMP requires us to provide citizens opportunities to report complaints, access the SWAMP and latest annual report on the city's website, and create opportunities for citizens to participate in stormwater control implementation. These activities may include cleanup events, gutter stenciling, household hazardous waste disposal events, and educational activities. Many of the outreach and education requirements mandated by our MS4 permit are accomplished through the city's membership in STORM. And STORM is an organization made up of many municipalities and government entities within the state. STORM engages in public outreach through both social media and advertising campaigns. They develop and distribute promotional items and educational materials. And they also track and maintain data on the effectiveness of those advertising campaigns. Overall, coordinating with other municipalities like this, it allows us to better serve both our communities and our neighbors that share our waterways. Public involvement and participation is another portion of our SWAMP, and it's accomplished through several means. We have reporting and tracking tools. I'll post our contact information at the end of this presentation, which you can call or email with complaints. And we have programs designed for tracking complaints and projects. The Household Hazardous Materials Facility allows for Mesa citizens to responsibly dispose of their potential pollutants for free, as well as recycle usable materials at the swap shop there. If there's still any materials left and it's still able to be used as intended, that's what the swap shop is for, and that can prevent it from becoming another pollution source if it was discarded as landfill waste. Citizens can engage through social media posts, storm advertising, and live events. And webinars or workshops like this also round out the ways we meet our public involvement and participation requirements. Illicit discharge detection and elimination, also called dry weather screening, involves inspecting our storm sewer system for flows during dry weather or when it's not raining. And when it's not raining, we don't expect to see anything flowing through the systems. However, if we do, we must confirm if it is an allowable discharge or not. Allowable non-stormwater discharges include things like landscape irrigation, air conditioning condensation, dechlorinated swimming pool discharges, and emergency firefighting activities. We have 14 different outfall areas in the city, each with up to several dozen outfall sites and field screening points. We inspect these field screening points annually, and all standard outfall sites must be inspected at least once over the 5-year MS4 permit. The city must also attempt to identify new outfall sites where discharges may be found outside the storm sewer system. Like I mentioned, when conducting these inspections, we expect to see no flow during dry weather screening. However, if a flow is found and can be sampled, a sample is taken to confirm it is an allowable discharge through laboratory analysis, and the site is re-inspected in 24 hours. The city code also lists out all allowable discharges. If you're ever unsure, you can also give us a call, and we would be happy to help. Part of our responsibilities include self-inspecting City of Mesa facilities. We keep a record of city-owned facilities and document inspections at least annually for potential stormwater discharge. Some of the things being inspected at these facilities include that containers like drums, cabinets, etc. are closed tightly and only being opened when actively putting materials into the containers. Secondary containment is available as needed. Chemicals are properly separated for reactivity, and all chemicals are properly labeled with labels facing out. As part of the MS4 permit, the city must also conduct inspections at private industrial and commercial facilities. These inspections must take place at each identified facility once during the 5-year permit term. While on site, our inspectors will review regulatory documents such as their existing stormwater permits, air permits, and stormwater pollution prevention plans. Facilities that don't appear to be meeting their permit requirements are reported as non-filers to ADEQ. These inspections help to resolve and prevent future illicit discharges from taking place within the city. Construction sites are some of the most inspected by our staff, which take place at least once every 3 to 6 months. Sedimentation pollution can come from vehicle track-out, concrete wash pads, or runoff from material stockpiles. Paints, sealers, coatings, and other wet products are also really common at construction sites and have a high risk of discharging into the storm sewer if spilled or left unattended. A stormwater pollution prevention plan, or also known as a SWIP, is required for construction projects with a total earth disturbance of greater than 1 acre or about 43,000 square feet. All city-owned projects that require a SWIP must go through a review process with us, the Environmental and Sustainability Department, to ensure all requirements are being met. SWIPs can tie into dust permits, which could be a whole other workshop itself, but just for reference, projects with greater than 0.1 acre or 4,300 square feet require a dust permit through the county. Developments are typically required by code compliance to get approval for grading and drainage for on-site retention. Practices as simple as sloping a hill or a sidewalk can have meaningful long-term impact on preventing debris and other pollutants from entering the storm sewer. Having new development standards that require stormwater consideration during both the construction process and the final permanent product is a massive help in preventing and reducing the volume of accidental discharges into the storm sewer for the life of the site. For city facilities, development features like retention basins, valley gutters, and in extremely rare cases, dry wells may be inspected more often than the permit's minimum requirements to ensure they are clean and free of pollutants. So here we're going to get into common stormwater violations that we see every day. This first one is a view of antifreeze pooled up in the curb. Unfortunately, people use antifreeze to try to control the feral cat population because it has a sweet taste, and so cats are known to try to drink it. And then you have antifreeze and a deceased cat in the storm sewer system. This next one, there's two issues with this photo. There's unattended storm drains down here at the bottom that have no protection. And then this construction site up here didn't properly seal off where the sediment is, flowing into the storm drain. This next one's really common, causes a lot of pooling of liquid, is just having trash and debris blocking the storm sewer. This next one is similar. There's trash within the storm sewer. However, if you look closely, you can see that the trash is larger than the grate. So that means that it likely came from a different point upstream of the storm sewer and has flown down to this point. This one here is a photo of track out. Track out is just sediment being dragged onto the roadways by construction vehicles exiting the construction site. And here we're seeing an unmaintained track out pad. Normally these large cobbles are used to knock the sediment off of the vehicle's wheels as they leave a construction site. But here you can see that sediment is kind of caked up on top of that, so it's not going to do anything, and it's going to cause more track out. Here you can see a dust violation. The opacity is greater than 20%, which is what we look for whenever we get a complaint about dust. Everyone in our department here at the city, we go through EPA Method 9 training, which it teaches us to observe dust in increments of 5% opacity. So we can tell if something is at 20% or if it's at 15%. Here's another example of dust being greater than 20% opacity up here on the top right. And overall, if you see suspicious stormwater dumping activities or if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. That's our general email, environ.info@mesaaz.gov, and our hotline is 480-644-3599. And if there's any questions, I can take them now.
Thank you, Amy. That was extremely informative.
Thank you. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Derek or Mike, do you have any questions?
No questions here. Very well done. Thank you very much.
Okay, if we have no questions, then I am going to stop the recording.
Thank you.